Om Sangramana Soja Takto Chulo Adayat Potra Vayushan Chamukhadayat Om Sangramana Soja Takto Chulo Adayat Potra Vayushan Chamukhadayat Om Sangramana Soja Takto Chulo Adayat Potra Vayushan Chamukhadayat Om Chandrama Manasoja Chandrama Manasoja Chujo Adayat Sotrava Yusakan Tusat Kalirayat
So with the lighting of the lamp, and it's a matter of pleasure that with the blessings of our Chancellor, Baba Marsnaji Yogi, MP Alvar, the Chancellor's nominee, Madam Anjana Rao, the Vice Chancellor, Sir, Dr. R.K. Yadav, the Registrar, Sir, Dr. Indrajit, and other dignitaries, Dr. Asha Saran, and Dean Academic, Dr. Satish Chandra Sharma, and the faculty members. It is really a matter of pleasure that on the occasion of inaugural session, we have lighted the lamp, and light and positivity is the symbol of progress. Due to technical problems, the program has been delayed. So I would like to cut short, and I would like to request PC sir to express his views on the occasion of this.
Namaskar. It is a matter of having administration, and in particular the Department of English, to extend my good wishes at inauguration of the international conference on the topic emerging trends and challenges in English literature. This conference, though being held in virtual mode due to corona pandemic, still I hope that it will be useful to provide an opening for the improvement of the literacy in respect to the current trends in basic understanding and expression of to the expression to the deep knowledge about the kind of literature and availability as on today, and also to meet the necessities for future as well. Although English is not a most spoken language in the world, yet it is considered as the most popular and potential language or communication that connect us globally. Access to English mean greater access to the internet, and that means greater access to the world. English literature is so diverse that there is no one way to pigeonhole it. There is so much to learn and so much to read. From Romanticism and the Victorians to modernism, and even development of science fiction, in addition to the commonly known poetry and dramas that are frequently mentioned in the English literature. English is interesting if we are willing to examine into it, and certainly may find it as to enrich our experience as a human being. For us, language and literature are not just a part of human expression, but also of life, culture, and history. Literature is meant to educate and entertain the society in its true sense, and is rightly called as mirror to the society. It cultivates moral ethics in people by promoting intellectual ideas to overcome the weaknesses or shortcomings of the society and help in developing positive attributes. I am sure that this today's international conference by virtual mode will attain its objective and contribute to a great social cause. I assure my support and cooperation and congratulate the organizers on behalf of BMU administration and wish best of luck for the success of the conference to all the resource persons and participants, along with the organizers in particular. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.
Request all of us to have a cup of tea. And then after giving a brief introduction of the question department, I'll give some introduction of the keynote speaker. So I would like to be brief because earlier was principal. See, Baba Masnath March is the most popular place of finance for Nath sect since the time immemorial, situated at the outskirts of Rohtak, Haryana, on Delhi-Rohtak National Highway. The Math has been running several hospitals, education institutions, and Baba Masnath University for decades. Bhavanashnath University, Rohtak is one of the most prestigious centers of higher education, sprawling over 250 acres of lush area in North India, with the blessings of worthy Chancellor Mahant Balagnathji Yogi, and university has been flourishing and catering for the need of the society, the nation, since its inception in 2012. The university is a blend of yogic culture and modern scientific humanities. It provides quality education in more than 100 courses under the guidance of highly intellectual, experienced, and committed faculty members hailing from different corners of the world. All of them are fully dedicated to mold the personality of the students for different professions and services. Our students get exposure through seminars, conferences, and workshops on regular basis. The university has well-developed infrastructure equipped with modern labs, libraries, and digital support for learning. The university provides safe and secure accommodation for boys and girls in separate hostels with quality food and lodging. The university also discharges social and national duties with the help of NCC, NSS, and Red Cross units. It imparts modern education with spiritualism. The Department of English, since its inception, has been flourishing profusely and approaching the zenith. The department endeavors to inculcate social, intellectual, spiritual, professional ethics, and educates in its students. It prepares them with a holistic approach to withstand the challenges of life and outside the world. The department has 12 highly qualified and experienced faculty. And today, our keynote speaker is from Nigeria. So let me introduce such a famous, acknowledged poet. Dr. Obinna Ibatim is the head of Department of English and Literary Studies, Alex Akume, Federal University, Beautiful Alex Ebonyi State, Nigeria. His state interest is in myth, language, poetry, oral and biblical literature. He is a member of African Literature Association and of International Society for Oral Literature in Africa. Dr. Ibatim is the coordinator of Language Enhancement Program, an upcoming poet. He is co-editor of Tolerance and Other Poems, a very famous collection in the world known as a book of English poetry, an anthology of poetry published by his university. He obtained a PhD in literature in 2018 and a diploma in theology also. Dr. Obinna Ibatim is an ordained priest of Church of Nigeria, having a family life. So we're lucky enough to have such good speakers. So shortly, we'll listen to the talk of Dr. Obinna. And especially, I thank very much Madam Ajna Rao, Chancellor nominee of this university, Dr. R.K. Yadav, Vice Chancellor, with your blessings, Dr. Indijit Rao, the Registrar of this university, and Sri O.P. Sadevaji, the advisor, Dr. Satish Chandji Sarma, Dean Academic Affairs, and Madam Asa Sarni, the Dean of Faculty of Humanities. I hope that with your blessings, we will be able to conduct this conference. Very good. Thanks. So over to Dr. Obinna Ibatim.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here. And let me begin by thanking and appreciating the Vice Chancellor, Professor R.K. Yadava, and the Registrar, Professor Indijit. I acknowledge and appreciate also the Dean, Faculty of Humanities, Dr. Asha Saharan, and also my friend that I've been in touch with, the head of department and professor, Dr. J.K. Sharma. It will be my pleasure also to appreciate my friend who linked me to this conference, friend and brother, Dr. Naresh Bhatt of Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, Delhi, India. And let me begin by saying that the theme of this conference, Emerging Trends and Challenges in English Literature, is a very apt one. And what I intend to do is to give an African perspective to what the theme may wish to pass across. And we will begin by saying and asking that it is possible that when you hear the word migration within the context of Africa, the first thing that comes to your mind is brain drain. It is also possible that observing evident facts and statistics, you may not be wrong either. The truth is that migration, although a natural social reality, has orchestrated a quite unnatural blight among third world countries. This anomaly, I dare say, is called brain drain. According to Odunsi, a scholar, one of the perplexing problems confronting much of the third world countries is the inability to galvanize sufficient manpower for economic development. Adeyemi et al. Scholars also note that this is expressed through the lens of brain drain, which, in the words of Dr. Lohest and Mafuk, refers to the international migration of skilled workers from a less advantaged country to another due to certain social compulsions. And when framed as a social reality within the context of the digital economy, brain drain involves the movement of technical skills from one location to another, either remotely or through the physical migration of people. Besides the recent virtual imperatives imposed on the world by COVID, you will notice that through such freelancer platforms as Fiverr and outsourcing contractors as Andela, millions of young digital talents are exported every day to service the technical needs of global North markets. While this may not be totally bad, in the sense that it helps to assuage the growing threat of employment deficit within the continent, one cannot help but imagine what would have happened had Africa the capacity to retain these skills for her own domestic development. It is important to note that there are several reasons why people migrate from one nation to another. Dustman and Weiss scholars capture the most critical ones in the assertion that economic motives and motives related to natural disaster or persecution are the major drivers of migration globally. These can be seen among earlier African writers, for while the former reason plays out in the life of Buchi Emecheta, a Nigerian novelist whose family leaves Nigeria for London in search of greener pastures. The latter is quite manifest in Wole Soyinka, the Nobel laureate's exile to France under the Abacha-led military government. And El Sadawi flees from Egypt in the 1980s following her persecution by the Islamic government. Before we return to literature, let me bore you just a little bit with some statistics. In 2008, Dokwaya and Mafuk reported that 10.7% of the highly skilled population who were trained in Nigeria ended up working abroad, mostly in Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD countries. In the United States and Europe, 83 and 46% respectively of the Nigerian immigrant population are highly skilled. On average, 64% of the Nigerian immigrant population have tertiary education. According to Clemens and Peterson, scholars in the medical field, 14% of physicians who were trained in Nigeria worked abroad. And 90% of them live and work in the United States and the United Kingdom. Among these skilled professionals is Olurotimi John Badero, a physician, interventional cardiologist, nephrologist, and a cardio-nephrologist who, after obtaining his medical degree from the Obafemi Awolowo University in Nigeria, relocated to the United States and became the world's first and only fully trained cardio-nephrologist. Now, in 2015, a movie titled Concussion was produced by Hollywood, which chronicles the risk of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, in American football players. That movie was based on the discovery of a Nigerian researcher named Bennett Ifakando Omalo, a physician, forensic pathologist, and neuropathologist who got his medical degree from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and worked for 3 years in Jos, a city in Nigeria, before relocating to the United States, where he resides now. According to UNDP, brain drain has cost the African continent over $4 billion in the employment of 150 expatriate professionals annually. But wait a minute, if what we're saying makes any sense, we then ask a question, does this then mean that migration is evil? By no means. It may be an exaggeration to outrightly disavow the essence of migration and cross-migration in the evolution of the 21st century global economy. But when such a movement features the large emigration of individuals with technical skills or knowledge from one country to another, usually for better conditions of service and good living environment, then brain drain may not be far from the discourse. This is because, as scholars Mba and Ekopara would say, developing countries, including those of Africa, not only lose significant tax revenue when these highly skilled individuals immigrate, they also are desperately in need of valuable professionals and personnel to develop their own workforce. When professionals move away from a certain country to another, the workforce of that country suffers. Now, migration and brain drain in African literature. We need to come back home and focus more on how migration and brain drain feature in the world of African literature. It may no longer be news that Nawal El-Saadawi, Wole Soyinka, the Nobel laureate, Chinua Achebe, the author of Things Fall Apart, Buchi Emecheta, a novelist of Nigerian extraction, Ngugi wa Thiong'o of Kenya, and a host of other African writers all had, at one point or the other, lived outside their homelands due to certain factors that were not within their control. As mentioned earlier, El-Saadawi in 1988, following a threat by political and Islamic fundamentalists, fled Egypt for a teaching position at Duke University, North Carolina, United States. Likewise, Soyinka's vehement criticism against obnoxious policies sanctioned by the Nigerian military government under Sani Abacha, the despot, earned him an exile to France in 1994 in resistance to a planned house arrest. In the words of Omotayo, one major denominator among the works of these earlier African writers, irrespective of location, is their predilection to expressing issues related to Africans. In other words, although they lived in the diaspora, their works still reflected a fervent sensitivity to discourses within the homeland. It is therefore safe to assert that brain drain is, at this point, mainly expressed in the pedagogic externalization occasioned by the existential absence of these writers from the continent. Transitioning to more contemporary writers, such as the Nigerian Teju Cole, the Cameroonian Mbolo Mbiu, and the Ethiopian Denao Mengistu, one also notices the preponderance of migration, not only in their lives as authors, for these writers all lived abroad, but also their works. For instance, Cole's novel, Open City and Every Day for the Thief, both respectively present the parallels and disparity between the majority, the migratory reality of Africans trying to identify themselves with the host land on the one hand, and those attempting a reintegration into the homeland upon their return on the other. Mbiu's Behold the Dreamers, a novel, captures the experiences of the Jonga. The Jonga is a Cameroonian immigrant family living in New York, whereas Mengistu's book, How to Read the Air, zooms into the cross-generational immigrant experiences of an Ethiopian family who were separated by war. Looking at emerging issues on migration and brain drain in African literature, it is perhaps through the lens of these writers that an entrance is gained into the Africans living in the diaspora, and how their absence affects not only the continent in collective terms, but also the people who are connected to them. In the case of Nigeria, Adichie's Americana carves through the theme of international migration to highlight the concomitant struggles faced by Africans while trying to make ends meet in the diaspora. And so in the book Anti-Uju, who, according to Ife Melo, used to be full of life while in Nigeria, is now more reclusive and less happy, and has almost no time for her son, Dike. Also, Ife Melo observes that the mechanical efficacy of America is achieved through the sacrifice of tangible communal relationships, as is obtainable in the homeland. This perceived, as it were, estrangement coagulates into a sense of brash alienation among these diasporic Africans that leaves them always craving for home. Now, in the author Unigwe's On Black Sisters Street, perhaps he paints a more harrowing portrait of this insidious sense of alienation being suffered by Africans in the diaspora. On getting to Antwerp, the four major characters in Unigwe's On Black Sisters Street, Sisi, Ama, Efe, and Joyce, are all thrown into a life that is completely different from what they had imagined before leaving their homes in Africa, much like the characters Noma and Efe in Akachi Ezigbo's Traffic. The book Trafficked was written by Professor Akachi Ezigbo, a lecturer in our university. Now, Unigwe's four sisters are all compelled to work as sex slaves to be able to earn enough money to buy their freedom. These characters, therefore, typify Africans who, although compelled to leave the continent due to certain imperatives and promises of social betterment, are caught in a web of existential dilemma, not knowing whether to return to their homeland or to remain in the host land. Adichie's Ife Melo and Obinze in Americana proffer a perspective to this question as they both return to Nigeria after having lived in the United States and the United Kingdom, respectively, for a few years. Also, the unnamed protagonist of Tejuko's Every Day for the Thief returns to Nigeria and tries to reintegrate into the homeland reality, but with very marked difficulties. This perhaps draws quite succinctly from recent attempts being made by several African writers towards refocusing the diasporic African consciousness to the homeland. This is the backdrop against which such concepts as hybridization, cosmopolitanism, diasporization, and recently Taye Selassie's idea of Afropolitanism are evolving today in African literature. Now, in conclusion, from the foregoing discourse so far, it should have become clear and clearer that if the right socio-political climate is created in Africa, perhaps the challenge of brain drain can be curbed. An attempt has been made so far in our discourse to reveal the economic hemorrhage being faced by the continent due to the constant immigration of her people to global north countries. Important also is the fact that if the highlighted factors that we have presented so far, which drive people away from Africa, are checked, perhaps the continent can begin to retain her best resources, her intelligentsia, who in no small way can contribute to her domestic development. According to the United States mission in Nigeria, over 2 billion are remitted to Nigeria every year from the diaspora. Although this may be an indication that diasporic Africans are really looking back home, it is critical to surmise that this does not preclude the need to rejig social economic climate of the continent. For when that is done, instead of sending back a fraction of what the diasporic Africans make abroad at intervals, their skills can genuinely be employed towards actually ensuring the holistic development of Africa. Like Chimamanda Adichie's protagonists, it is also needful for diasporic Africans to consider investing in the continent. This may perhaps be the best form of foreign direct investment that may be witnessed in Africa. Once again, my name is Dr. Obinna Ibatim. Thank you very much for listening. God bless you.
Now the next keynote speaker is Dr. Naresh Kumar Vats. Dr. Naresh Kumar Vats teaches English in Indian aesthetics and theory, film studies, and communication skills in University School of Humanities and Social Sciences, Guru Gobind Singh University, New Delhi, India. He has traveled extensively within India and abroad. He has presented several research papers, given plenary talks, conducted workshops, and published several research articles. He has guided several PhD, MPhil, and master course dissertations. As an aware citizen, he does his bit to contribute for the betterment of society and humanity. He is committed to world peace and existence with harmony. And all of us know it very well that these are the essential requirements of the world. So over to Dr. Naresh Kumar Vats, our second speaker. Thank you, sir.
Namaste to everyone. I am grateful to the Honorable Vice Chancellor of the University, learned professors, office bearers, and especially the students of Baba Masnath University. As J.K. Sharma sir was very liberal in introducing me, most of the things probably he said out of his love towards me. I don't know how far I qualify on these terms, but he raises the bar every time he talks to me, and I try to generally keep pace with what he says. Thank you, Sharma sir. I'm thankful to the speaker that spoke before me, Professor Obinna. Dr. Obinna is a friend for a long time and an intellectual, public intellectual. It's very important, in fact. I may please be excused as I have a difficulty in speaking a bit because I was beaten by a wasp yesterday here. I don't know, there is a little of swelling also. Professor Obinna is a public intellectual who speaks for the society. He writes literature, and we all know that literature not only reflects the society, it also affects the society. Because that is the whole idea of literariness. This is what I believe. I may be wrong. But I feel that a literature or any piece of art that is constructed, that is made, it is made and then released to the society or to the world. That is the worldliness of art. A piece of art is created just to be released and work in the society. So, thing is, not only literature which is just assumptions or just imagination, even the theory also, it takes birth from the society and then it emerges with the society, interacts with the society, gets affected by the society and affects the society. That is true with every literature. All literatures are good. So there is no contest, mutual contest. A literature is like language. Any place you go to, anywhere in the world, you will find so many languages, languages upon languages. और कोस कोस पे बदले पानी, कोस कोस पे बदले वाणी, ये जो बात हम कहते हैं. I mean, when we travel a distance, you will see the change in taste of water, and you will also see the change in the nature of language, or even I must say taste of language. Most of us, those who are attending today, belong to Haryana, and you see there is no one Haryanvi language. And I'm sure same is the case with Dr. Obinna's place, that language changes after every 10-15 kilometers you go, and there will be some other variant of the same language. When a literature is written in a language, I'm especially referring to our discourse, Indian discourse. It is when we read a literature in Indian condition, again, let me emphasize, a literature is written in our language. Lakshmi Chand writes in our language. ब्रज के रसिया जो लिखे हुए हैं वो एक लैंग्वेज में लिखे. But unfortunate condition is because of this over intellectualization of the discourse, academic discourse, and not only academic and administrative discourse, we have created lists of the language, enlistment of the language. India mein, there is 8th schedule of the Constitution. The languages which find place in that schedule are language, and the languages which do not find place or space in that schedule are not languages. Now, the violence that was done is to the people like me, at least. Because I consider myself as a Haryanvi person who has a language, Haryanvi language, which speaks the native reality of my place, which gives me the taste of being in the world. This is my worldliness. This is my text. This is my Haryanvi. This is my identity. But all of a sudden, I felt cheated. All of a sudden, I recognized myself, or I identified myself, a person with no language. When I fill a form, a government form, I write languages known: Hindi, Punjabi, English, Bengali, whatever, a little bit of Urdu. There is, but the language which I actually know does not figure anywhere. Drop down list में अगर आप देखेंगे, while filling up a form, there is a drop down list, and in that you have to pick up a language, you have to choose a language. You will not find Haryanvi written there. मैं क्या करूं भाई? My literature is written in a language. You might be saying a boli. What boli? Boli क्या होता है? It's all language. It may be, a romantic language. It may be a very serious language. Lakshmi Chandji reminds me of the amalgamation of varieties. Today, all songs are available on YouTube, and now the new writers like new singers like Masoom Sharma and many other writers, they speak, Lakshmi Chandji's Raganis, and you see with new beats. Of course, the mass media has brought in a bit of variety in the life, but it fails to reinstate the language. It fails to reinstate the literature. Today, Meher Singh, I have always been an admirer of the poet. When I was in school, I remember the first ever Ragini sung by me on a stage as a child. The first chance I got to appear on a stage and speak in the mic, this was a great fascination. कहीं पे mic दिख जाए तो बच्चे कूद के जाके hello or something, some or other things, nonsense or funny things would speak over it and run away. That's very nostalgic, and some of the people of my age and the people elder to me will relate to it. कारें बहुत कम होती थी. जब कोई car, when any vehicle passes, a muddy place or a place full of dust and would arrive somewhere and stop near you. So we never left a chance to write our name on the dust, because that will be easy to write with finger. Write our name or some other thing on the dust. Dust to bhi ek hai, of course, it has not disappeared. Anyway, this I said it as a background. Why I said it? Because we must recognize that a literature is a living thing. A piece of literature does not have to be poetry every time. It does not have to be a poetry rhyming every time. The thing is, what we have done, or the violence that we have done to the literature so far, is we have compartmentalized it. And the literary discourse and the literary theory, the most violent things, one of the most violent things that can happen to a literature. For example, those grand and master literary narratives or theoretical narratives that are rampant around: modernism, postmodernism, Marxism, this ism and that ism. These isms, my goodness. And another word, that is post. Modern, there is a post-modern. Truth, then there is a post-truth. There is theory, then there is a post-theory. I hear the terms like post-human. What the hell post-human is, I don't know. Post-truth, I'm not understood. like Jacques Derrida. He wrote volumes and volumes on deconstruction. But finally, he says that I do not understand what deconstruction is, so I cannot define it. You also don't try to define it, because you will not be able to define. No one will be able to understand it, but still he calls it a theory. But the problem is that he writes pages and pages on deconstruction. I don't know why the hell he is doing all that. When a person declares that a particular thing cannot be defined, it cannot be understood, no one can write something for other person to understand. Why the hell Derrida wrote all that? If someone understands this, I will be grateful for the explanation which somebody extends that explanation. But thing is, as human mind, we have some kind of scratching in the mind. एक academic खुजली होती है असल दिमाग में. That intellectual scratching, and we keep doing that. We keep trying, giving new theories. Theories असल में क्या होती है? These are all assumptions. We assume something, and then we speak of it. Somebody would buy it. Somebody would discard it. If a theory gets somehow it gets picked up by some people who are someone's, then the theory becomes popular. Otherwise, it is like any other rubbish. Yes, Seemaji, Jacques Derrida was a French philosopher. But वैसे देखा जाए तो barring some people, Jacques Derrida was nobody in France. He came to John Hopkins University in America, and he was picked up by Americans. And it was probably the part of American foreign policy that Jacques Derrida was given a due lift, and he tossed his whatever he said around through of grammatology and all other things. And we in the developed country, as Dr. Obinna said rightly about the third world countries, that we keep buying blindly, things coming from the West. And we like, मच्छर जो होते हैं ना, malaria फैलाते फिरते हैं. We keep going around and, biting each other with those theories and, spread the malaria within among ourselves. And then we feel proud, okay, we know a theory. I may be wrong, but थोड़ा सा मजाक हो जाए. Okay. So problem is, within this literature and in this literary scene, initially I proposed to say something on a term, Deshivad, Nativism. Thing is, the very big name that comes in this particular field is Bhalchandra Namade, Professor Bhalchandra Namade. He speaks about Deshivad. Nativism roughly translated in English. Asal mein this Vad and ism, my friends who are scholars in Hindi and Sanskrit might throw some light on the suffix Vad, what it means, but I believe that Vad, Seemaji, please repeat name of that scholar. Which scholar? I don't know. Are you talking about Bhalchandra Namade? I think it is Professor Bhalchandra Namade that you, right. Bhalchandra Namade ji, the name I mentioned for Deshivad. उनकी एक book है, साहित्यतील दर्शिता, देशीयता, साहित्यतील देशीयता. So, thing is, normally literature or the theory is hijacked by the grand narratives that was instilled by West and Western people. Problem is that, okay, I have nothing against the grand narratives, but thing is, these narratives represent the West. They represent English. Who will talk about the literature of colonies? Unfortunately, You know, even in colonies, we are blind advocates of the Western theories. On the name of internationalism, on the name of globalization, in fact, we have forgotten our local voices. You ask the people, people who are in English departments mainly, about the literary theories, about literary theorists. They will start from Plato or Socrates and all that, and they will come down to all these postmodern theories. I mean, Jacques Derrida, Jacques Lacan, and all that. So if you ask them, do you know, are you aware of any name or any theorist from India? There's no name. If you ask a person, do you know Bhartrihari? No one knows. Bharat Muni, yes, of course, Natya Shastra. Srimaji is really very helpful to me. Rasa theory of Acharya Bharat Muni, yes. Patanjali, no. I mean, Patanjali's theory was really influential. And mainly when Vyas ji wrote a Vyas Bhashya on Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, there he talks about Kram, sequence. Right? It's a great formula he gives about the sequence. He says, you know, the sequence actually it is the absence of simultaneity. Sequence is impossibility of the simultaneity. There Vyas talks about how words appear in a kram, how words appear, you know, in a sequence, but the cognition is sequences. He says that the sequence is a consequence of the impossibility of simultaneity. And then he says that the sequence entails, one after the other. But when you look at a sequence, the understanding of the sequence or the cognizance of the sequence is sequenceless. It is one-less. Ekatva, wo jo samajh hai, that is unique, that is one, that is sequenceless. And how it happens is a mystery. Mind does not work in sequence. Mind understands actually things, you know, in totality, samagrata in totality. No one talks about it. Acharya Bhartrihari, you know, Jacques Derrida is saying all these things on the basis of Acharya Bhartrihari's idea of sportvad. What is sport? The burst of cognition in the mind. My learned scholars in Department of Hindi and Sanskrit would enlighten me on this topic further. Though in my own small way, I tried to teach Indian aesthetics in my university. Since I'm not a certified scholar in Sanskrit, so I try to understand things every day better and better, and sometimes reading text on Indian theory in Hindi, sometimes in English, and sometimes do my bit in understanding it in Sanskrit. But the problem is, it is our duty, in fact. This is our desiyata. This is our worldliness, that we try to project the true picture, true theoretical history of India to the people. This is what Bhalchandra Namade points out at. He says, in fact, that the problem is the kind of bogus internationalism that erupted in 1950s and 60s was the problem, that really did the problem. The kind of colonial internationalism. See, Namade ji does not say internationalism, he qualifies the term with colonial kind of internationalism. You know, all conquerors write history, everywhere. All conquerors write history, or they get the history written all the time. Say Akbar, you see Akbar, Nama, You see, आईने अकबरी, अकबर का आइन, constitution, और तुझके जहांगीरी, तुझके बाबरी, I think, and there were so many such texts, and you know, these are some names that come to my mind. There are so many other names that I'm not able to recollect right now. But all conquerors, a person who conquers a territory writes his or her own history. So in order to maintain, why it is done? It is to maintain the supremacy. History is a tool, in fact. History is a political tool. It has always been used, irrespective of the religion. So it is done in order to impose their worldview, the worldview of the conqueror, upon the minds of the people. This is how cognitive map is changed. It changes or not is a debatable question, but at least an attempt is done. Yes, conquerors mold history. Seemaji, thank you. They do it through two ways. One is education and other is literature. Education means when a small child goes to school, the first primer which is given to the child, that primers, जिसको हम कायदा बोलते हैं, प्राइमर. हमारे टाइम में हम जब स्कूल्स में थे, मैं बता रहा हूँ 70s, we used to call those small books primers as कायदा. हिंदी का कायदा, अंग्रेजी का कायदा, मैथ्स का कायदा, because these kaidas, these primers would contain the very basic things. But is it so simple? Do they? अच्छा अभी यही है? Okay, well, आजकल भी कायदा ही बोलते हैं. The problem is, मैं क्या कह रहा था? Yes, primers. So is it so simple? No. A qaida is not that simple. A primer is not that simple. Because the kind of discourse that emerges out of that simple qaida, the kind of sentences written. Kaise? Hindi. Let us take the example of Hindi qaida. Right? We teach simple sentences. What those sentences are? भैया खाना खाएगा, रमा तू पानी भर के ला, माँ झाड़ू लगाएगी, पापा अखबार पढ़ रहे हैं. Are you getting it? The kind of discourse it is instilling in the mind of that impressionable child. वो बच्चा यही सीख रहा है. That a lady or that a small girl has to do grooming, has to serve food or water and do all the chores. And boys of the house and the men of the house, they have to do the important things like eating, like reading papers, sitting idly, and all that. Same way, literary books are extension of these kaidas. These histories are written, or they are got written in a certain way, looking at the past from a particular point of view. So India got freedom politically, but remains colonized in through the subtle influences of the colonizers. Even after more than 7 decades of the freedom, we have not been able to develop an effective Indian discourse. एक बहुत अच्छा भारतीय विमर्श, an effective Indian discourse have not been able to be instilled in Indian minds. We have no shared dream. Do we have a grand Indian dream? They have an American dream. Every time we shamelessly teach in our classes, what we do is we teach what is that that book we teach in American literature? What is that novel? What is that novel? The Death of the Salesman. Death of the Salesman. When we teach Death of the Salesman, we invariably talk about Indian dream, shattering of American dream, shattering of American dream and all that. क्या कभी हम अपने आप से पूछते हैं, do we have a similar Indian dream which we can share with each other? Do we have that, such a shared national discourse? Do we have those grand narratives? What do we have to talk about our past? No, depressing stories. Depressing stories. हम गुलाम थे, हम गुलाम थे, हम गुलाम थे. That's all. We were slaves, we were slaves, we were slaves. That's all. Don't we have anything to be proud of? Don't we have stories to be proud of? Let us ask it ourselves. So, we should have, an Indian discourse, our own Indian discourse that can guide us and that can guide our system of education. What the fuss we are doing with education today. We almost all are in departments. किस तरह की पढ़ाई हम करा रहे हैं? What kind of educational management is happening? एक चीज आपको बता दूं. I don't know, I might sound sometimes unpleasant in saying, but in any university, any institution, when academic block is bigger than the science libraries or the lecture rooms of humanities, that institution cannot survive as an academic institution. It may be a business place, it cannot be an academic institution. When administrative block is stronger, more powerful and bigger than the academic building, that university cannot be at least an academic institution. It can be a money-making business. Problem is that we have economic models that may be a place of study, sometimes for the MBA people. They might come there and certain things and learn and study certain things, how to make more money. When we design courses, हम क्या करते हैं यार? When we are designing course, when we are reviewing our courses, हम क्या कहते हैं? Do this to this course so that it becomes more sellable. हम उसको sellable बनाते. Culture is made sellable. जितने भी हमारी cultural, all our cultural culturally lived experiences have become cultural commodities. Similarly, our educational experience, development of our educational upliftment has become more sometimes a commercial activity. So Namade is talking about Indian discourse. Where is that? There is no Indian discourse. There is no coherent Indian dream which we can share, which we can serve as a shared code of communication. We should have a shared code of communication. दो चीजें मैंने यहाँ पे technical चीजें हैं. The first thing, as I told, is a technical term of discourse. Another is, as I'm telling you, the code of communication. If I'm allowed 2-3 minutes on discourse. What discourse is? विमर्श क्या होता है असल? Discourse is, a system of statements within which and through which we understand the world around us. That is discourse. Vimarsh, Hindi mein. Discourse is a system of statements. The world is a discursive entity. चीजों का अपना कोई meaning नहीं होता. Things have no meaning in themselves. Things are made to mean through processes of representations. If I may take an example, let me take an example of my own self. Discourse, if I may explain the term discourse, it is this way, that okay, if I come to your university, Baba Masnath University, I enter the gate, nobody knows me. Or say I am a faculty, or you come to my university, anybody who doesn't know me, who doesn't know who I am, who Naresh is, comes to the gate of my university. Till that time, Dr. Naresh has no meaning I'm a meaningless person that time. Seema Devi ji, who is constantly guiding me through my talk today. Man lo, Seema Devi ji comes to my university. And there, by this time, she doesn't know. She has not seen me even. That means I'm a meaningless person, meaningless entity by that time. But when she enters the gate and she asks the guard or anybody that, excuse me, I want to meet Dr. Naresh. And that person speaks 2-3 sentences about me. He says, yeah, he's such a bogus person, and why the hell you want to meet him? It means the moment Seema Devi ji heard 2 sentences about me, all of a sudden Dr. Naresh acquired a meaning. System of statements. She got 2 threads of the structure, 2 sentences, 2 statements. Now Dr. Naresh has a meaning. As a bogus person, as a Beowulf person. Now she might decide not to meet me, or if at all she still decides to meet me, these 2 statements, this meaning is going to reflect in her namaste also. On the contrary, yes, Srimati, thank you for saying this. On the contrary, if somebody says, Dr. Naresh, sir is such a nice person, you come, I'll lead you to a chamber. All of a sudden, Dr. Naresh has acquired a different meaning. Now, earlier, the visitor might be just saying namaste to me or hello to me, but after receiving such good information or good input, that person might decide to go and say like this. It means I have no meaning. I have no inherent meaning. I make or I become meaningful only through the statements about me that are there around. That's why they say world is a discursive entity. World has no meaning. It acquires meaning through the system of representations. This was about discourse. As I told you, I repeat, discourse is a system of statements through which and within which, we know the meaning of this world. I was telling you codes of communication. We understand each other. We make ourselves understandable or understood to each other simply by a shared code of communication. Dr. Obinna is able to understand me because there is a shared code of communication of English. He is linguistically able to understand me, but he is otherwise able to have a deeper understanding of Dr. Naresh because we have a shared past. Am I right, Dr. Obinna? Yes, we have a shared past of coloniality. He understands what I am saying. Right? He can understand what I am saying. So there is no, coherent Indian dream, as I was saying, that should be there. Whatever visions and systems were given to us by our colonizers proved quite effective from their point of view, from the colonizers' point of view. Right? Really, they made effective, impeccable system from their point of view because it served their aim. The proof is that we all are still clinging to their system. See how powerful system they made and how weak we were that we let our system of thousands and thousands years old, we let those systems vanish. And we are clinging to their school system or their university system. Whatever we claimed to have got freedom from on 15th August of 1947, day before yesterday, was the day. After the midnight, it all returned back to us. So we got freedom from what? Today also, police act, those who belong to police forces, They know it. I have heard it from police people also, that their police rules say Punjab Police Act 18 something something. What the hell is this? Today's policing, is guided by the rules made by Britishers in century ago. 18 something, Punjab Police Act. Are we not ashamed of it? Is it still a British police? I don't know. The Delhi state was fighting for police, that we should have Delhi police under the control of Delhi state. It should not be in the control of center. I don't know why the hell, Delhi government say that we want to have a new police act, a sensible policing, Indian policing. But no, we are actually not addressing the real issues. The problem is this. The real issue is there should be a kind of restructuring that we are not doing. What we are doing is, of course, so many wonderful things have been proposed in NEP, New Education Policy of India. I don't know how much it is going to, enrich our system, how much it is going to be implemented. But one thing I don't know that pinches me is, it is more, streamlining itself to the Western universities. I don't know, still we are hell-bent on producing people here, those who will be nothing more than getting an eligibility to be the part of some courses in Western university. Dr. Obinna understands it better because his son is very recently got admitted in an American university. Am I right, Dr. Obinna? Yes. Okay. So from secondary education to university education, Western thoughts rule our academic discourse. That is the problem. Even you see in Hindi departments here, I don't know, most of the people I met, I may be wrong in my observation, but this is my observation, kya karu, that most of the writers actually, what they do is they are more into understanding the Western theorists in Hindi, with Vanshvad or modernity and this Vad or that Vad. So if somebody from Hindi department, Sanskrit department can respond to what I am saying, I may be wrong. So I would like to have some response. Some critical and honest response. In our university, we have a tradition in our English department that we have a tradition of, seminars, departmental seminars in masters, in MA English and MPhil. And I can really proudly, I can say that the papers written and presented in those department seminars by my students are, if not far better, at least they are nowhere less from the papers presented in international conferences. What we do is we make it a point that we include films and texts from Hindi, essentially, and one or two texts in translation from the regional languages. That may be Bengali, that may be Punjabi or Madi the Diva and all that. This is one name I right now remember from Punjab. So we do this. Once it happens that somebody from some other university, very senior professor came, what we do is in those seminars, we invite, scholars, senior people from other universities to come and sit with our students. When I say sit with our students, I'm talking about pre-COVID times. Sit with our students, sit throughout the seminars and respond there. So the sir who came from the university, a very renowned person from Hindi department, after the seminar was done and we were just sitting over a cup of tea, the scholar was really, astonished. He said, Dr. Sahab, you invite Hindi people in your English department? How is it? I asked, sir, what is wrong in that? He says, I don't know. What I have seen is that in other departments, Hindi people will always be saying, why should we give a lift to English people, and English people will feel that we are far more intellectual than Hindi department and all that. There is a constant dog fighting and all that. Sorry if I've used the wrong analogy of dog fighting, but there is something like this. Why is it? Why don't we democratize ourselves? Why don't we secularize ourselves? Secular in the sense that we use department or subject as a religion, whereas knowledge is not confined to a subject. Why the hell there should be a difference if I have read Munshi Premchand's say Godan in Hindi or in a Bengali translation or an English translation? What is the difference? क्या फर्क पड़ता है यार if I read Milan Kundera in English translation or in Czech? So on the name of globalization, we have been espousing the kind of internationalism, which instinctively undermined whatever local we have, whatever deshi we have. It is here Bhalchandra Namade comes. What he says, and I quote him, he says that it is a bogus internationalism of Nehru era. Namade, in his essays, the name of the essay is Nativism in Literature. I invite all of you, those who have not read, of course, most of my academic friends must have read him, but agar kuch bachche bhi hain isme, if there are scholars, I will invite them to read Bhalchandra Namade. He says that the years of European rule resulted in a sort of colonialist internationalism in the minds of colonized people who were apparently carried away by the colonialist discourse and the socio-cultural environment prevailing in the mind of 20th century. So documentation of the history was undertaken, and the point of view to look at the past was that of colonial rulers. This is what happened. That was the violence that was done to our past. I don't know, Dr. Obinna, what was done to your history and your past in Nigeria. But in India, it was done that the history was written from that colonial point of view, so that there will be no proud left in our history. The process was subsequently controlled by a peculiar vision, which is popularly ascribed to Marxism in India. There were hardly an Indian eye to look at our past. The glance or the gaze was highly selective or limited, which affected our narrative. There was hardly a space for our native heroes and heroines, and the great traditions, our cultural images. If at all they appeared in the narrative, it is too very sparse. The mentions were just here and there. There's no elaborate explanation. And that too was done, politically. The most apparent instance is our first freedom struggle of 1857, Pan-India freedom struggle, 1857. That was cunningly called mutiny. It was a freedom struggle, but it was called Gadar, withdraw, mutiny. Why? From the Western point of view. And it's all fine from the colonials' point of view, and they did really a remarkably great job. I clap for them. In order to create an other, the inferior other of the superior West. In order to establish their supremacy and their entitlement to rule. Identity is closely related to entitlement and disentitlement. In fact, they had to construct an inferior, unreasonable, highly fragmented, and non-self-sustainable West, sustainable East. This was the kind of identity they wanted to create in us, of us, which Edward Said has termed as Orientalism. They wanted to create that Orient. So that East has nothing native to be proud of. This was the vision, the whole vision. That there should be nothing native left to be proud of. If you do this, they will be following us blindly. And this is what they are able, that's why I clapped for them. That they did it effectively, and it is still happening. Aaj bhi ye ho raha hai. It is still happening. So in order to demolish the vision of great united India and psychocultural integration of India, certain writers did a massive historical fraud with India. Why? The most flagrant example of it is they twisted the Aryan identity, the identity of great Aryans. They twisted it. They manhandled it by saying that Aryans came from Europe. On the one hand, they established Aryan was a great race. On the other hand, they said it is not Eastern. This race originated in the West, hence we are great. We came from here, and went to the East. There we routed because you deserved it. We routed you. You deserved it. It was, and it is our entitlement. So in order to create that identity, the history was manhandled. If you want to destroy people, if you want to destroy a culture, you have to do it. You have to twist the identity. Twist the identity beyond recognition. So a culture stands tall on the basis of a shared sense of identity of the people. If you put that identity into question, and somehow you subtly suggest that this identity is not united, it is highly fragmented, the sense of pride of the people will be just impaired. And you have done a good job if you are able to do it. This is what they tried to do. Unfortunately, so many Indians bought it. Why? Because they were mentally constructed, mentally controlled by the Western discourse. Discourse, I told you what discourse is. So this Western discourse created people. They, constructed it into a kind of zombie identity, who would buy, anything shit coming from the West. But what happened? The clever schemes, it was doing well especially in academic circles. Nativism, Desiyata, local pride is still left in uneducated people and unlettered people. They still have pride in their being. They still have pride in their being Indian, Bhartiyata. Unki Indianness, I'm not saying Indianism. They still have pride in their being Indian, being local, in Indianness. In India, all our elderly people, हमारे जो बुजुर्ग लोग, they still are proud of their local things. मेरी माँ आज भी नौमी के दिन खेत में जाती है, एक मड़ी है हमारे बुजुर्गों की, जब जिस किले में वो मड़ी है, जब उसमें घुसती, उसकी डोले से पहले अपना सिर ढक लेती हैं. हाफ बुजुर्ग हैं लेकिन फिर भी पल्ला करती हैं. उस किले में घुसने से पहले, गोंडे से ही, कच्चे रास्ते से ही. तब वहां जाती हैं, पल्ला करके जाती हैं और पूरा जो है ना उनको नहलाती हैं और उनको जो भी है भोग लगाती हैं, सब कुछ करती हैं. और why? She is proud of her heritage. What today's these educated people do? वो क्या करते हैं? For the benefit of Dr. Obinna, let me tell it in English that even my mother, in a nutshell, I was saying, Dr. Obinna, that my mother, who is a very old and almost uneducated lady, I will not say unlettered. Uneducated means she escaped from schools. She did not go to school, but she can read newspapers, she can read Ramayana, Mahabharata, anything and everything in Hindi. So isliye she is not unlettered. At least she is not ill-educated. She takes pride in the tradition. She is not postmodern. I'm proud to say that I was born to a woman who did not succumb to, or rather who escaped from the clutches of Western theory. Dr. Obinna, I was trying to say this. So the schemes of the West was really doing well. देखो ठीक है, डायलन के सॉन्ग्स हैं, उनको they are world internationally renowned, and these songs are the part of, or even Bob Marley songs were the part of our curriculum. These people really wrote about revolution. Our songs, which we sung in our local languages, are really the part of our revolt. Revolt against whatever is the onslaught of modernism. Aaj bhi, the ladies in Haryana, they sing jakdis. Jakdis are not, actually, they are not complaints per se. These are the voices, internal voices. These are the voices that speak to themselves. It is the duty of we people that we must make our children, our progeny aware of the tradition. Lok, bahut important. Folk is really very important. Folk voices are important. Folk is important. Folk ras hai. Standard languages ras nahi hai. Standard languages are intellect. Folk or lok is emotion. Bhav hai. Emotions को, भाव को बचा के रखना चाहिए. Emotions are to be protected. सहेज के रखना चाहिए. Are to be nourished. So, but the problem is that despite even the counterpoints presented by at our local level, that theory of Aryan coming from West and then infiltrating the East and butchering, and conquering the East, because they wanted to show themselves as conquerors. Aapko bata do, again, this is the part of the discourse. I will give you a local example of discourse. In order to perpetuate the supremacy of male, there are rampant, a baggage of jokes on females. कितने ही चुटकुले हैं यार. एक बनाए बीरबानी थी भाई, या एक बार जाटनी जो ना जाट ने कूट दी. What the hell is this? What is funny about it? I'm not able to understand till now. कितने ही इस तरह के सॉन्ग हैं. एक लोगाई कहना हो कि घराले ने मारे. What is funny about it? I don't know. Dr. Obinna, what I'm saying is that there are so many songs to inferiorize female. There are so many jokes to make the female inferior. Jokes अपने आप में एक discourse है. Jokes are a powerful discourse. Not only male, female. Are there not so many discourses or so many jokes on lower caste people? Countless jokes. How many jokes are there? For the sake of propriety, I'm not mentioning those jokes here because I don't want to perpetuate this thing. I find nothing funny in those jokes, yaar. They say, एक बार जो है ना, एक बंदा particular caste का था और उसने ऐसे कह दिया, ha ha. What is that? What is funny about it? What is funny about it? About proving a person of a particular caste is stupid? I don't know what is the fun. But such jokes are perpetuated culturally. Such jokes are nourished, culturally. This nourishment comes from our within, and this has to be changed. This is Deshiyata. This should be the worldliness of literature. Right? हर language की worldliness होती है. हर literature की एक worldliness होती है. उसकी materiality है. There is a materiality or there is a worldliness of a literature. That worldliness should be seen what kind of discourse it is going to perpetuate. Anyhow, I was talking about, that Aryan thing. Yes, but there are so many Punjabi, Kirti is right in saying, there are so many Punjabi songs that what do you say, that objectify women, that perpetuate a lot of this thing, nasha and all that. I don't know what is funny in that. There is I will mention 2-3 songs here. Popular songs today, Haryanvi pop. Let me see. एक गाना है जिसमें कुछ ऐसा है कि मेरा हस्बैंड जो है ना मेरे लिए कोका कोला लाया और मेरे पैर दबाए और क्या किया. सीमा जी, you remember, or I think बच्चे तो आजकल ये सुनते ही रहते हैं. What is there in the last of that song? That person takes that lut and say, अच्छा मैं तेरे पैर दबाता हूँ. What is funny about it? But problem क्या है यार? इसका मतलब वो दबाए तो ठीक है. Similarly, there was a song in which a person was, beating the wife. वो कौन सा था? घूंघट बैन करा दे पिया something. या घूंघट बैन करा दे पिया. ऐसा कुछ है इसमें. इसे उमरी सासू की. What the hell? What is funny about it? Right? So such kind of discourse has to be sanitized. Because if it keeps on like this, so I don't know what is going to happen. So one thing, the best thing that happened in the recent days, that was the myth of Aryan coming from outside. Yes, Lak 28 Kurida and all that. Yes, it objectifies the women. Rakhi excavations of Rakhi Gadi, that led to DNA testing, and the results came nowhere from else than Harvard University and Princeton universities that proved the DNA studies of the skeletons, and that they were, or they did not come from outside. Aryans were from here. The DNA studies are saying, and the whole lid was off. So the claims were exposed by these reports. Here I am reminded of Edward Said, again, who talks about Orientalism. I don't know, have I overstepped my time limit? I don't know how far I have been talking. If somebody can tell me how much more time I can consume. I don't know, basically, teacher is always going to remain a teacher. पता ही नहीं चलता. मैं क्या कह रहा था? Yes, I was speaking about that Edward Said, who talks about Orientalism. There he says that this is what the West wants to do. That the West wants to construct, an Oriental identity, which is the other of the West. Right? But Namade, again, let us come back to Professor Bhalchandra Namade. He talks about Desivad. Desivad, the rough, translation of Desivad is Nativism. Professor Sharma, can I take a little more time, or should I wind up? Professor Sharma, if you can respond. I don't know if someone is talking. Anyway, okay. I'm continuing in that way. So, Bhalchandra Namade talks about this. Sir. Okay. Because I started, quite.
Hello, Dr. Ankivat, sir. Hello.
Yeah, sir, please. Okay, I'm continuing for a little more time, then things will be open to the question and answers. So thing is, Bhalchandra Namade talks about Desiyata, Desivad, but at the same time, he tries to differentiate between what Desipan, Desiyata, and Desivad is. Desivad, Vadism, is an aggressive term. Desivad is Am I supposed to respond to something?
So your lecture has been quite inspiring and extensive one, and you may take as much time as possible because everybody has been quite interested to listen to you. And now try to conclude, please.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay.
So I will conclude, after speaking a bit about Dr. Namade's thoughts, who clarifies mainly on certain terms. First thing, he says that any kind of ism is an aggressive term. What he says is that Vad is a vigorous, oppositional and self-defense kind of movement. Whereas ta or pan, desiyata, desipan, ness, the suffix as ness, Indian-ness as an example. So desiyata is something more comprehensive. He says that Vad, as I told you, Vad is a vigorous and oppositional self-defense kind of movement or kind of act, which is different from a natural and normal and self-evident sense of self, right? Like, nativity. Nativity is a natural kind of term. Nativism is ism. When we say ism, it is ideologically charged sort of term. Any ism is like that. When we say nationalism means it talks about politics of being national. It takes nation aggressively. So when we say nativity is a natural kind of term, being native. Nativism, it talks about, a vigorous, it gives the connotations of vigor. So Namade, Desiyata includes Desipan and Desivad both. But again, there is no equivalent term in English. So generally, nativism is used. Makers of identity, there are certain identity makers, or rather identity markers in India, which fix, our sense of being Indian. Or I think the sense of being something anywhere in the world. In our context, in Indian context, the markers of our identity are language, as it is anywhere, jati, particularly in India, then community, as anywhere. In, I think, Professor Obama's place, I think we have a community in terms of tribes, I think. No, Professor Obinna, it is tribes, is a marker of identity in Nigeria, isn't it? I think Professor Obinna comes from which Obi tribe, or which tribe? Yes. So then there is ethnicity, then there is class. These are the markers of identity with which we can fixate, or we can fix ourselves, our existence. So he has done a remarkable, but yes, Igbo tribe that Professor Obinna comes from. Nomade has written a book that is Tika Samembra. Tika Samembra. Tika Samembra is a book in Marathi. And in that book, he quotes to a share from Ghalib, very important, and charged with a lot of understanding. That is, dair nahi, haram nahi, dar nahi, आस्था नहीं. बैठे हैं रह गुजर पे हम, गैर हमें उठाए क्यों. But he says that I am not sitting in a temple, I am not sitting in a mosque, I am not sitting on a gate, I am not sitting, on any kind of threshold. Then why somebody should, I am sitting on a roadside in a public place. Why some stranger should come and lift me? Here lifting me means, why should somebody else come and impose a kind of identity on me? I repeat the share. Dair nahi, haram nahi, dar nahi, आस्था नहीं. बैठे हैं रह गुजर पे हम, गैर हमें उठाएगी. But Namade says that wherever we are, we have our local identity. We have our desiyata. We have our desipan. Why should some strangers from somewhere should come and impose the theories on us? What theory is theory? Dekhiye, we too have our own theories. In India, we have theories. We call them Shastra. We have theoretical positions. We have approaches to understand things around us. We have our theoretical discourse, what we call Shastra. Kitne hi Shastra hain hamare? We should understand our theories, but as it is important in Bharatiya Gyan Parampara, in Indian system of tradition, it is important that we should understand the Shastra, but in order to be updated and in order to engage in a meaningful discussion or a meaningful discourse in the worldly scene, we should have a strong Purva Paksha, pre-knowledge. Purva Paksh ki avdharna, the concept of that Purva Paksh is very strong in our Indian knowledge tradition. Hamare paas, we should have a strong knowledge of other system. Then only we can debate. If you do not know the counterpoint well, you cannot debate it. Shankaracharya ke saath hua. In our knowledge system, there are traditions. जब वो गए discourse करने, debate करने गए, तो a lady, शायद मंडन मिश्र की wife, उन्होंने कहा कि मैं आपसे शास्त्रार्थ करना चाहती हूं. उन्होंने जब देखा कि उनके हस्बैंड हार जाएंगे, मैं नाम के बारे में श्योर नहीं हूं, somebody can tell me the names, I'll be grateful. तब उन्होंने कहा, she started asking the questions on rati or on women, but the scholar who had no knowledge, क्योंकि वो ब्रह्मचारी थे, तो उनको इतना नहीं पता था, पूर्व पक्ष का नहीं पता था. He abstained from the debate. He told Devi, मुझे थोड़ा समय दीजिए. He went. He knew about it somehow with his own, powers. He came back and engaged, in debate. पूर्व पक्ष जानना बहुत जरूरी है. We should have pre-knowledge of all Western thoughts. We should know the Western theories. ये तो चलो बात यहाँ पे मजाक की थी या भावों की बात थी. As I told, that it's all rubbish and all that. Koi bhi shastra, koi bhi theory, where how, to what limit the theory is substantive, it is subjective thing. But we must know all theories. We must know all thoughts. हमारे यहाँ पर ये परंपरा है. Let the knowledge come from Ano Bhadra Kritvanto. ये श्लोक आता है. Ano Bhadra हमारा सबसे बड़ी हमारा डिक्लेरेशन है कि चारों तरफ से knowledge आए हमारे पास. If somebody can quote Ano Bhadra, I will be grateful. So it is that. I don't know, कहने को तो बहुत कुछ है, a lot to say, but I think for the constraints of time, in fact, I have a lecture at 1:20, planned. So I would like to conclude here that though there is a kind of categorization of knowledge, Eastern knowledge, Western knowledge, this knowledge, that knowledge, no knowledge is inferior. I am not saying that we should not read the West. What I am saying is no knowledge is inferior. My contention is there should not be a discourse which says that the West is superior, East is inferior, this knowledge system is rubbish and all that. Problem is we should welcome all and we should consider all the discourses, all the shastra, all the theories, all the literature equal. And here I would like to have some responses from the audience side. I believe that there can be no answers, but of course there will be responses from your side as well, from my side. And rather, I would request Professor Obinna to lead the discussion. He is a big scholar and he's a religious leader also. So I believe he knows far more than what I know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatts. Your lecture has been quite illuminating. And, you have been delivering your lecture for the last 1.5 hours. And in that way, I may remind Narendra, known as Vivekanand. So, thank you very much. And on the basis of your presentation, I have come to the conclusion that India is known for 4 things: Gita, Ganga, Gayatri, and Gandhi. And this is the crux of Nativism. So thank you very much. Any question from any side? So far as I feel that all the points are so much clear that there seems to be no doubt. But even then, if there is some participant who is having some doubt, may write, and that would be answered later. So thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. This is an excellent presentation. And I wish to say that we have a shared experience between India and Nigeria. And in my opinion, what we need to do is to encourage local understanding of what our forebears held dear to themselves. Yes, we may trim our belief system, our culture, to remove the aberrant the things that will edify, and ensuring to make these things count in our time. We mustn't look down on our culture. No culture is inferior to the other. as free culture has something to offer if given the chance to do so. Having said that, thank you once again for that wonderful presentation. Thank you. So if there is any contribution or a question, we can take that in the next couple of minutes.
But I would like to rather, add on a little point to Professor Obinna's thoughts as he was talking about brain drain and, how things are happening in the third world countries or